Hello, team, and welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MSP. This is Ukraine War Update Extra video, giving you extra tidbits and nuggets to get your teeth into to give you a greater understanding of the war in Ukraine. Where should we go to first? Well, let's go to a bit of indigenous military manufacturing from the point of view of the Ukrainians here. Ukraine begin the war with one prototype 2S-22 Bohdana long-range howitzer built for the Western 155mm shells and nearly scuttled it, but it escaped and fought in the Battle of Snake Island. Now there are three, and production looks imminent. Read on for the full story. And I'm going to pop into this piece in Popular Mechanics. This is something I've reported to you previously about how there was one, and then reporting recently, oh, look, there are more. This is a really useful thing for the Ukrainians to be able to do. Of course, constructing things to scale in Ukraine is particularly difficult. They're having to move factories from the east, where they traditionally were, places like Izium and Kramatorsk, over to the west, where it's a lot safer to be able to build things like this. And of course, can they build enough of them in particular timescales to make it sort of worthwhile and effective? I don't know. It's to be seen. But, just making a few of these is useful. So it took forever, but Ukraine is finally building its own howitzers. Let's read on. As Russian tanks poured into Ukraine in February 2022, the engineers at the Kramatorsk heavy-duty machine tooling plant were preparing to destroy what they'd spent the last 7 years building. The only prototype 2S-22 Bohdana long-range truck howitzer, Ukraine's first artillery system developed to use Western caliber 155mm rounds. Better to destroy it, they reasoned, than let it fall into the hands of invading Russian troops. But just a few months later, the 28-ton prototype showed up hundreds of miles away on the opposite side of Ukraine, helping to deliver the killing blow in Ukraine's siege of the Russian garrison on Snake Island. Now, videos show that Ukraine has assembled two more Bohdanas, now seeing combat in the massive seesaw battle for control of Bakhmut. And you can see some of these. OSINT Technical, one of the sources I use on Twitter there, showing you Bohdana in action around Bakhmut, supposedly. So we're going to sort of skip on a little bit. They're talking about how, what the Soviet legacy was in terms of construction, and then moving towards this kind of NATO ideal of making 155mm howitzers. So the 2S-22 was first paraded through Kyiv in 2018 with a non-functioning gun, only to be completed the following year. Seemingly inspired by France's Caesar artillery truck, it combined a long-range howitzer with a Kraz 6322 six-wheel off-road truck manufactured by Ukraine's Kremenchuk automobile factory. So there it is, and you have to stand on this ramp at the back. You can't use it, or you can't aim it and fire it from within the cab, but you do have to get out to use it. As for the Caesar, the gunnery crew had to dismount in order to load and fire the howitzer while standing on a ramp at the back of the vehicle. A maximum firing rate of 4 to 6 rounds per minute was possible, drawing from an onboard supply of 20 shells. The 2S-22 could sustain road speeds of 50 miles per hour or 18 miles per hour off-road. The armoured cab for the crew protected against small arms, low-energy artillery fragments, and mines smaller than 14 pounds. So there it is there in action or training. Then, a bit more talk about the difficulties in making it originally. Finally, just a few months prior to Russia's invasion, official firing trials were held, demonstrating a capacity to hit targets up to 26 miles away and exceeding expectations. Theoretically, rocket-propelled shells may achieve ranges of 31 miles. However, the Bohdana prototype still lacked the autoloader and digital fire control system that were hallmarks of other cutting-edge self-propelled howitzers. So this doesn't really compare with a lot of the tech on board to things like the Caesar, Panzerhaubitze 2000. I know that's a tracked piece of kit, but you get the point. The Ukrainian politician Sergei Pashinsky claimed in a Facebook post that he intervened to prevent the fate of the howitzer being scuttled at the beginning of the war. Instead, the 2S-22 was disassembled and its components trucked to relative safety in Zhytomyr in western Ukraine, where it was rebuilt. Now, this is an area that has been targeted, and you can imagine it will be exactly this kind of target, a manufacturing plant for weapons, that would be the objective for hitting Zhytomyr. where it was rebuilt. Russia, meanwhile, never made it to Kramatorsk. So, in fact, you could have, I guess, continued making it Kramatorsk, but Kramatorsk itself has been routinely hit by missiles. The two S-22 re-emerged in June, so it's only last month, when a video showed that it is deployed, near Ukraine's border on the Black Sea with Romania on the Danube River, 450 miles southwest of Kramatorsk. And here is the video showing that, getting a bit of reconnaissance there from a Bayraktar drone. There was talk about Caesars being used to hit Snake Island, and it could well have been Caesars as well as, it appears, a Bohdana itself. So that is, really good for the Ukrainians, right? The two S-22's mission was sustained bombardment of the Russian garrison on Snake Island, 20 miles away, which Russia's Navy. Oh, this is June 2022. Then actually, we're talking about in June. Yeah, I guess that's June 2022. Yeah, June the 30th. So not just last month. That last month is when we saw these further Bohdanas being brought into play. But yeah, no, last June when they were indeed attacking Snake Island. The two S-22's mission was sustained bombardment of the Russian garrison on Snake Island, 20 miles away, which Russia's navy had captured on the war's first day. By June, the Russian garrison had sustained devastating losses from Ukrainian Bayraktar drones and warplanes. Surveillance imagery provided by Bayraktars orbiting vulture-like around Snake Island allowed the two S-22's crew to correct for accuracy, allegedly even knocking out a Russian Panzer air defense vehicle. There was a theory that they were, or the claim that they were putting Caesars on barges and having them operate literally at sea to give them range that allowed them to hit Snake Island. So I don't know if that's the case with the Bohdana. Who knows? The original 2S-22, last seen in action in December, remains in service with Ukraine's 1st Special Forces Brigade. Meanwhile, the Kramatorsk factory has apparently assembled 2 more pre-production 2S-22s based on the MAZ-6317 truck. Between 2016 and 2018, Ukraine purchased at least 320 MAZ-6317s from Belarus, with Chinese engines swapped in for Russian ones. Interesting. And then goes on to talk about bits and pieces to say, looking to the future, but the fact that at least 3 Bohdanas are now operational suggests that the capacity to manufacture more actually exists, especially with the Kramatorsk plant now moved to Western Ukraine. That said, there's a new factor to consider. The production model Bohdana will likely involve yet another new chassis, as MAZs from Russia-aligned Belarus aren't renewable, nor are Kraz 6322s dependent on a Russian engine. At a defense expo in Abu Dhabi, Reznikov suggested the use of 6-wheeled Kraz or German MAN trucks, or even an 8-wheeled variant based on the Czech Tatra T815. So that Tatra is something that is used as a basis for a lot of trucks and pieces of kit, actually, that the Czechs use. But such adaptations don't always proceed as smoothly as expected. Another question is whether or not Ukraine will attempt to finally fit production Bohdanas with an automatic loading and digital fire control system as intended, accepting the intended delays, or proceed without to field more artillery tubes sooner. So that's your kind of trade-off, isn't it? Let's get them out now, and they won't be as efficient and technological, but they will be tubes on a battlefield throwing lead at the opposition with decent enough range. So, and you can shoot and scoot with them. The Kramatorsk factory is also co-developing with Slovakia the latter's new EVA 6x6 howitzer truck by state-owned Constructor Defense, which will also aid in finalizing the Bohdana's design. Interesting. EVA 2 has a range of 25 miles, but will also feature an MRSI mode, allowing multiple rounds to hit a target simultaneously and require only 3 crew due to greater automation. Now, the way I would understand that is the idea is you fire like 3 shells and all 3 shells hit the target at the same time, which means that they don't have any time to get out there. Like you get hit by one, and if it doesn't do crazy damage or lands just nearby, you go, right, let's go. And then, that gives you, say, 15 seconds or 20 seconds or a minute before the next one arrives. Well, this I presume it's done on trajectory. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just guessing here. But it would fire one at a a higher angle, so it takes longer to get there, and then one at a lower angle, and then one at a lower angle. So all three at such a point with each of them that all three land at the same time, and you've got three shells just going bang, 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 and there's no chance to get out of there, and then more chance of creating greater damage. Reportedly, Ukraine's satisfaction with cooperation on the importing of the Slovakian Susanna 2 howitzer underlays the new deal, though some media outlets warn of political risks depending on the results of Slovakian elections. There is, yes, I talked to you about Slovakian elections previously, and there are some pretty pro-Russian elements in the Slovakian political landscape that would be a genuine worry as opposed to maybe another country. In quality and sheer quantity, self-propelled artillery donated or purchased from abroad, like the Caesar, Panzerhaubitze 2000, Susanna 2, or the M109, will dominate in Ukraine's military for the foreseeable future. But the capacity to indigenously produce long-range artillery compatible with NATO standard 155mm ammunition should boost Ukraine's longer-term ability to sustainably defend itself against its bigger but clumsier invader. Good article, lots in there, lots more that I haven't read to you, but I think it's brilliant. Great that Ukraine are really trying to bolster their own indigenous manufacturing. We've seen this in terms of drones. We've heard about this in the Trembita cruise missile done on a pulse jet propulsion system, a bit like the V1s from World War II, by all accounts, and they are building, as you can see, self-propelled howitzers. They're indeed producing a few tanks too. So this is it's looking good for the Ukrainians in that respect. It is all about scale, right? Talking about bits of kit, for no particular reason, here's a Biber bridge laying tank somewhere in Ukraine, driving along with a bridge on its back. I said bridge on its back. It is made of bridge. Well, no, it does carry it, and then it leaves it there. You can go and get another piece. So it lays that, and we have seen. I don't know if we've seen bridge any of these actually used. There were some bridges I remember across the canal, but I think they were laid by the Russians in the Bakhmut area. That we saw, but I haven't seen them since, and that was some months ago. Anyway, that's a Biber bridge laying tank, which we have seen, or our AEV, Armored Engineering Vehicle. We have seen a number of these promised and pledged, but also delivered to Ukraine now. They will need as much as that kind of stuff and breaching equipment as they can get. Right, going on to Tatarigami. In the context of counteroffensive and minefields, let's continue the review of the Russian manual. So he got himself hold of a Russian doctrinal manual talking about how to defend against attacks from the Ukrainians. And here is one concerning minefields. So this is a review of the Russian manual that offers guidelines for establishing minefields as a countermeasure against Ukrainian mechanized columns. So let's just dip into this thread. So the manual recommends installing mines on roads, bridges, and off-road areas near tree lines where vehicles may move. Special attention should be given to intersections where the installation of mixed groups of mines, obstacles, and barricades is recommended. The process is described as follows. Mixed minefields are installed in the front part of the defense line at night. The mining itself is carried out covertly by groups of sappers consisting of no less than 10 to 15 individuals, allowing for manual placement of mines. I think they were talking, what was the number? I forget now. In Bakhmut, in a couple of hours, they laid 400 mines, like 200 mines in an hour. That's the phenomenal rate. And that's not even firing them out from like ram shells or whatever that fire out from a howitzer and then drop all these mines. These are just laid by people. The squad leader with his sapper squad carries 2 to 4 mines in a designated area and indicates the placing location. After placing the mines, the squad withdraw back to the storage of the next batch of mines, not more than 30 to 50 meters away from the minefield boundary. According to the practical experience outlined in the manual, FAB 250 bombs and S-300 surface-to-air missile warheads were successfully employed as explosive charges to effectively demolish roads. Sometimes mines were deliberately installed without camouflage, forcing the air view to divert their route towards areas where hidden mines are positioned. Russian manual advises to deploy clusters of anti-tank mines in bypass routes adjacent to obstacles such as disabled vehicles, destroyed road sections, and road bridge structures. So, in other words, you destroy stuff uh, and leave that blocking away. And so, if you're approaching that obstacle, you go, "Oh, right, I need to go around it," and that's where you have the mines. Um, the manual mentions the utilization of the Uragan MLRS, uh, equipped with KPTM3 cluster mines, as well as the Zemledeli remote mining system to effectively obstruct the movement of the Ukrainian convoys. So, again, these are your remote mines like the ram shells. The manual emphasizes the effectiveness of nocturnal operations carried out by small sapper groups equipped with night vision means. These groups move further from defensive lines and lay mines in various areas, including previously mine cleared zones. The manual may not introduce groundbreaking innovations, but it highlights the enemy's capability to remotely redeploy cleared minefields or deploy them during offensive operations to impede the movement of assaulting forces. This additional factor complicates the assault. If you so that is is again, as he says, as Tatarogami says, it's not groundbreaking stuff. This is how to lay mines, right? But this is something they're thinking about, something they're doing, obviously, and it is complicating the Ukrainian counteroffensive. Now, I was supposed to share with you, I don't know where that's gone because it's not on my sticky notes. I'll have a little look for this, but there was news yesterday. So someone had escaped from, I don't know if it's a Mariupol area, who had been drafted into helping to excavate channels to dig for burying Russian soldiers en masse. So these are mass graves for Russian soldiers. So again, this feeds into the idea that Russia have lost an awful lot of people and are building these mass graves, but they were littering the mass graves with anti-tank mines. Like, what are you doing? And I guess the idea would be that they really don't want people to discover this. And if you lay it with loads of mines, and no one's going to go digging around there. And if you do dig around there, then you're going to destroy these people, literally destroy the bodies, so that they are not identifiable, which means you're not going to have to pay out. They're just still missing, right? But the person, the witness, or the person that was drafted in to help do this, who's subsequently escaped to the Ukrainian side, was saying that there were still some bodies alive. You could hear like murmuring, as well as they're putting in body bits. Is like we're putting in torsos and heads and legs and things. I mean, it's horrific sounding. But there were claims that there were some of them still alive. I mean, absolutely horrific. Right, moving on to Defective. So great comments as ever from Defective. This is in response to, I showed you images of the Russians supposedly setting fire, like exploding wheat fields and then burning. Basically, I said it's a scorched earth tactic. They're just burning the wheat fields. If we can't have them, you ain't going to get them. So this is Peter Zeihan who's referring to, predicted that the burning of crops, or he predicted that burning crops and attacking the agricultural industry would be Russia's next energy grid attack. So we've seen him previously attack Ukraine's energy infrastructure, and they gave up on that. It didn't succeed particularly well, or at least Ukraine were able to mitigate against that quite successfully, although it was a problem, but it wasn't the massive problem that Russia were hoping it was. We had a very much warmer winter than they were expecting as well, which meant that it wasn't as effective, that approach. But now we see them sort of burning crops and attacking agricultural industry. The idea of both is to kill and displace as many civilians as possible, both to create humanitarian disasters in Kyiv and neighboring states as Hungary, or in winter freezing civilians flee for safety, and also to reduce the population and make way for later ethnic Russian settlement. The same mass ethnic Russian settlement of Ukraine happened after the Holodomor. Very interesting parallel there. Russia claims, and has claimed for a while, that they have the right to invade any nation with a sizable Russian ethnic and or Russian-speaking population, which is interesting because I've sent a letter to Ben Wallace, the UK Secretary of Defence and asked him to invade Australia because, quite frankly, it's about time they were back, fully under our control. So watch out, Australia, because I think we're coming to get you. Because you have, lots of ethnic English speakers, right? Ethnic British people there. So sorry, soz. The Holodomor, Russian ethnic and/or Russian-speaking population, so as to defend their ethnicity and national values. That's their phrasing, the Russian phrasing. Obviously, I'm joking, right? Because that would be horrific. Unfortunately, the Russians don't joke with these matters. They send in armies. The Holodomor led directly to this war in that respect, just as forced relocations of Russians paved the way for actions in Georgia, South Ossetia, Transnistria, etc. This is what war crimes as a military strategy looks like, folks. I hope that China doesn't soon try to show the Russians how it is really done. Thank you for that, Defective. Really appreciate your input, as I do for so many of you guys, guys and girls. Guys is a non-gender specific term in my book. Right. After this report, so this is referring to Valery Marcus, who is quite a well followed on social media, Ukrainian sergeant he was, or at some level, and he basically asked to be demoted and moved kind of sideways because he was fed up with some of the Ukrainian command, which is to say that, hey, it's not perfect in the Ukrainian army by any stretch. And there's still large elements of Soviet style leadership. There are still issues within the command structure for sure, as you would imagine there would be. After his report, Valery Marcus was removed from the post of Chief Sergeant of the 47th Separate Mechanized Brigade and Magura, which is participating in the offensive in the Zaporizhia direction. Vitaly Ava took his position instead of him. So that is, there are lots of people talking about that, about whether he was being oversensitive or whether he was right and had the right to do that type thing. I guess people will be split, right? Okay, Russian terrorist. This is from Dmitry from War Translated. Russian terrorist under the call sign 13th is genuinely puzzled by Putin's recent statements on Wagner and its financing. He initially addressed Putin as a grandpa with dementia, but then edited it to a more mild, happy grandpa. I find stuff like this very, very reflective. It's about the little things, isn't it? So it's when you start having people in the military blogger network more openly like pushing the envelope in terms of how they speak about Putin. And yeah, we've got someone that said this and then edited it to say something else, but we know what the true feelings are. We understand that Putin has lost an awful lot in terms of his identity, his PR, his kind of the respect his nation have for him, and particularly in the military community. He's lost an awful lot. I mean, things haven't gone well, and the whole Prigozhin thing was just another element that feeds into that. So as Dmitry continues, unfortunately for the 13th who supported Prigozhin, the happy grandpa doesn't care what a pleb about a pleb like him, what he thinks. The grandpa recently had an incident and nearly lost his head, so he'll say anything that may help him get out of the situation. A bit confused over who he means there. Can the happy grandpa decide at all? If PMC Wagner was paid money from the budget, but the organisation does not exist, then what is this called? Money laundering or budget development? I'm just interested in theory. That's just idle interest. During the capture of the criminals, the main thing is not to uncover yourself as a perpetrator. Ouch. Ouch. So, we really are seeing this kind of rhetoric from within previously ultra nationalist, pro Putin, from these sources. I think, as I've said over the last couple of days, it really does look like certain elements of the Russian military edifice are crumbling. Okay, I'm going to go to another comments from my thread here, just because it's an excuse to talk a bit philosophy here. This is a bit of a random sidebar, not hugely connected to Ukraine as initially. So I talked about how that Ukrainian soldier, what called Hulk, was he's wearing a VR headset that was kind of all these cables going. He's plugged into some kind of network where he's controlling his drone and using that drone to, do war, right? Drop her up or kamikaze itself into a tank with an RPG-7 warhead attached to it. And that is the kind of future of warfare to some degree. This is what, people like the US and China and everyone really are looking at this war going, okay, what are we learning? What do we need? We need drones, and we need a lot of them, and we need really good drone tech development and training of drone operators. And in fact, you can probably bet your bottom dollar that after this war, the Ukrainians will be in NATO training NATO. Right? They'll have the most up-to-date experience of warfare and high-tech warfare, much more so than any of the nations that are presently training the Ukrainians and giving them equipment. So Mr. Wonderfully here says, I'm a drone expert and have been building those racing drones since you first could. This is an amazing experience. Sometimes I fly past myself and wonder who that guy standing in a field is. Once you get good, you don't think about the controls. You are the craft, and it automatically goes wherever you think it should. Out of body experience and amazing precision. Sad to see it's being used to kill people. I found a 10-year-old video of mine where I'm saying they would be, and it would be hard to stop. Try this for peaceful purposes and you will have a great time. Someone else says United Weridens says the out of body experience is the most sensational experience. It feels like a literal merging of machine and consciousness. Wild that we can now see the fear in our enemy's eyes while we cheerfully experience flight. Now, on these kind of initial points here, this is transhumanism. Right, transhumanism is a merging of technology and humanity biology, and we do it like glasses we're already well on this way to a transhumanist future, right? And wearing glasses is a form of transhumanism. Now, I'm experiencing the world, literally experiencing the world through my lenses all the time, and my experience of the world is integrated with my glasses. Okay, they're an integral part of me. So they become me. In fact, Heidegger, the philosopher, talked about transparent technology. So even when you're using a hammer to hammer a nail, you're looking at the nail and you're hammering it, and you're concentrating on the nail. You're not concentrating on that hammer. The hammer becomes invisible, becomes transparent technology. Pacemaker inside your body and your heart. All these kind of things. These are any tool that you use when you're driving a car. The idea is it becomes an extension of you. You're feeling the bumps. You are experiencing movement. Everything is viewed and experienced through that car. The car effectively becomes part of you. That is kind of transhumanism. Now, last week I did a live on my other channel. I've got a philosophical channel called A Tippling Philosopher, and I did a live Q&A with 4 transhumanist guests, right? And this is hello and welcome. This was a really interesting chat about transhumanism, and you've got this guy running for the US president he's the president of the Transhumanist Party. And yeah, just really great. In fact, Jason Geringer, who is a viewer of this channel, ATP Geopolitics, is also a transhumanist, and he said, we kind of, got talking and sorted out this Q&A. But I find transhumanism really a fascinating idea that actually it's about embracing technology. Yeah, technology might have some challenges with AI, but also AI is something to be embraced, artificial intelligence, to solve some of our problems. And when you're talking about going back to sort of talk about war, actually technology and AI and things like that can help solve minefield issues. And so much in the war is about what technological solution can we add to that. And when you're talking about transhumanism, you can talk about like bionic people in terms of losing their legs and getting prosthetic replacements, and the use of technology in that eventually will become sort of transparent technology to them as they're walking and not really experiencing the leg. They get used to it. All these kind of areas. I find it fascinating to understand this, but I get that. I've had certain experiences where I've seen myself. I can't remember through like video cameras or whatever and stuff, and you're looking at yourself from a different angle, and it's that really weird experience. But I find it fascinating where you're merging technology with your consciousness, and then that that drone that you are flying with that RPG-7 becomes you. You are that drone. You're looking through that camera. You've got all other senses have been kind of blotted out. You're just visually that drone going, that FPV drone going forward. And as you go in, and you can even drive past yourself, fly past yourself, and have that weird experience. And yeah, loads of cool stuff to consider when talking about that. Anyway, if you're bored, go and check out my transhumanism Q&A on my other channel. That would be cool. Right, lastly, I'm going to talk about Russia and attitudes towards Russia. Here is a Pew Research Center questionnaire or survey, attitudes towards the Russian Federation in different countries around the world. This is from spring 2023. Now, lots to say about this, not least that Russia is not particularly popular. So here we have the US, 62% very unfavorable, 29% somewhat unfavorable, 7% very or somewhat favorable. So it's a really big skew there. You've got what? That's 92, that's 93%, 93.7. That is, in the US, there ain't many. And yet, when you think about Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz, and you're thinking, actually, you really represent. But I guess, if you ask people like them, they probably wouldn't say that they support Russia, but they just don't support supporting Ukraine, which is slightly different, right? Canada, you got 81. Oh, yeah, it's going to add it up. I don't need to do maths. 81 there, 12 against. Then we go. Poland is the largest, set of figures against Russia. You have 90% very unfavorable, 8% somewhat, 1% favorable to Russia. Sweden 96, 82, 14 and 3. Wow. Spain really surprises me because, and maybe they're just in a particular political situation at the moment. I don't know, but they haven't. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, Spanish viewers, if I have any. Please let me know why Spain hasn't been as forward in supporting Ukraine as much as some of these other nations. Do they have budgetary problems? Are they going through a difficult political situation at the moment? Why have they been somewhat absent? Now, I know Robles, the defense minister, has been announcing a number of things, and they are giving leopards, but I wonder whether it's as representative, as their public opinion is. I guess is what I'm saying. You got the Netherlands big up there, and of course, Netherlands had MH17. The loads of Dutch people dying on that airline that was taken down by the Russians after the 2014 war outbreak of the 2014 war and the annexation of the Donbass and Crimea. UK 67, 23, with 10% favourable. I find that interesting, but I wonder whether we have. I don't know. I mean, we have quite a bit of Eastern European immigration, but if you look at the other Eastern European nations like Poland, so we have a number of Polish citizens resident in the UK, or at least we historically have. Brexit has changed things quite a bit, but so you would guess that wouldn't really explain that 10%. That 10% does seem larger than I was expecting, but we're still one of the most anti-Russian nations in Europe as a whole. I mean, it goes down to Greece, 66%, 32 very unfavorable, 34 somewhat, and then 32 somewhat favorable or very favorable. So about almost a third of the population pretty favorable towards Russia. And you can see, with the latest elections and the resurgence of the far right in Greece in a really big way, their elections the other week that I wrote an article about, there's a really interesting political thing going on in Greece at the moment. To the point where they have a more favorable outlook towards Russia than Hungary. And here we are always slagging off Viktor Orban, for being so chummy with his best pal Poots there. And actually Greece appeared to be more of a problem. And that's why we've seen Greece give some really old bits of kit, but only after having the promise of them that being backfilled. The excuse they give is the issue between them and Greece and Turkey, and they don't want to, fighting over Cyprus. Cyprus is cut in half. It's an island in the Mediterranean. It's cut in half. One half is kind of run by Turkey, the other half run by Greece, and they're always worried about a conflict with Turkey, which is why they don't like getting rid of military equipment. So they only get rid of it if it's sort of backfilled. And then it goes on to Japan here. Japan very unfavourable uh, towards Russia, even more so than the UK, Australia as well, South Korea slightly less so, and then India. India is more favourable to Russia, and of course they're in BRICS, than they are against Russia, and that is pretty fascinating. Same with Indonesia. There must be quite a number of neither nor in Indonesia, and certainly in India as well. Israel, fairly understandable there. They have like 15% Russian speaking population in Israel, and yet still, you know, a massive majority not favorable towards Russia. South Africa, again, coming on to a third favorable. Kenya and Nigeria, more than a third, over 40% favorable to Russia. And Mexico, about a third favorable to Russia too. So there's a really interesting set of stats there. Now, when you look at a 24 country median there's 82% unfavorability rating of 15% favorability. So if you are Russia looking at this, you're thinking, I'll be interested to see what the stats would have been from, say, 2021. But if you're Russia looking at this, and the question is, well, did we make the right decision? You've got to take into account your soft power around the world and what people think about you. Did you make the right decision, Russia? Well, your economy's screwed, your army's screwed, nobody likes you. You're the pariah, and the only people that seem to be liking you are Iran, North Korea, even China are a bit like meh, and I don't know, India to some degree. Well, I don't know that you've done yourself any favors. Uh, yeah, ridiculous. Anyway, hopefully that's of some interest to you. That's today's extra video. Thank you so much for your support. I'll update my members thanks sheet over the next few days, but really appreciate your support, especially as in the last couple of days, 3 out of my last 5 videos have been kind of restricted, which does actually make a really big difference to all the work I'm doing here. So you guys supporting is a huge thing. Thank you ever so much. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon. To the pips.